The true intelligence does not show when you speak, it shows when you decide. It is noticeable in what you tolerate, in what you ignore, in what you choose to do, even when no one is watching. There are people who do not appear brilliant, who do not quote books, who do not impress in conversations, yet they end up earning more, advancing further, and making fewer mistakes. Not because they know more, but because they think differently where most react the same. For years, we were led to believe that intelligence was about accumulating information, memorizing concepts, or appearing clever in front of others. But the intelligence that changes destinies does not live in the head. It lives in behavior. It lives in how you read people, in how you interpret situations, in how you decide under pressure, in how you act when there are no guarantees. That is where those who repeat patterns separate from those who create an advantage. This audiobook was created to train that practical, silent, and deeply effective intelligence. The intelligence that does not seek approval, that does not exhaust itself in arguments, that does not enter unnecessary games, and that always seems a step ahead without boasting. It is not theoretical intelligence. It is a way of operating in life applied to relationships, decisions, conflicts, opportunities, and personal power. If you have wondered why others seem to move calmly while everything around them is chaos, or if you know that your problem is not a lack of talent, but a lack of mental clarity, this audiobook comes to sharpen your thinking so that every decision works in your favor. Because when you understand how real intelligence works, you do not need to run faster. Life begins to respond differently. Chapter 1. Think before reacting. Most people believe that reacting quickly is a sign of intelligence. Responding immediately, defending themselves, explaining, justifying, counterattacking. But in real life, the opposite occurs. The one who reacts first almost always loses an advantage because the reaction comes from impulse, not judgment. An impulse is emotional, not intellectual. True intelligence appears at the moment when everyone reacts the same way and you do not. That is where a silent but decisive difference is created. Reacting without thinking has an invisible cost. Poor decisions, words that cannot be withdrawn, unnecessary conflicts, missed opportunities. Brilliant people lose respect, business, relationships, or positions simply because they do not know how to pause a few seconds before responding, not because of a lack of ability, but because of a lack of pause. The intelligent mind does not run. It observes, evaluates, and then acts because it understands something that most ignore. The first reaction is almost never the best decision. A clear example occurs in the world of professional chess. Great masters do not play quickly, even when they know the move. They pause, study the board, review consequences because they know the error is not in not knowing, but in rushing. Magnus Carlsen, world champion for years, has explained that many games are not won by genius, but because the opponent hurries under pressure. The intelligent do not accelerate when there is tension, they decelerate, and that is when they win. The same happens in difficult conversations, negotiations, family disputes, or work decisions. When someone provokes you, pressures you, or demands an immediate response, they're trying to control the pace, and whoever controls the pace usually controls the outcome. The intelligent break that game by creating a pause, not to flee, but to think better. That pause is a form of mental power. The practical application is direct and trainable. Every time you feel the impulse to respond immediately, stop, breathe, count slowly to 5 seconds. Not to calm down emotionally, but to regain cognitive control. That small space between stimulus and response is where practical intelligence lives. There you decide whether to speak, how to speak, or not to speak. And often, not responding is the smartest move. You can train it in real situations, uncomfortable messages, emails that provoke irritation, tense conversations, rapid decisions. Instead of responding reflexively, tell yourself internally, I respond after thinking. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, but very soon you will notice something powerful. Fewer mistakes, fewer regrets, more respect, and a clear sense of internal control, because the mind stops following impulses and begins to direct them. The result of this chapter is not that you become cold or distant, but that you become clear. While others lose emotional control, you gain intellectual advantage. While others explain themselves, you choose. And when you choose from calm, life begins to respond differently. Now that you know how to create a pause before reacting, in the next chapter you will discover something even more powerful. Why intelligence is more noticeable in what you ignore than in what you know, and how directing your attention makes you mentally superior without extra effort. Chapter 2. Where you invest your attention defines your intelligence. Intelligence is not measured only by what you know. It is revealed above all by what you choose to think about. Two people can have the same level of education, the same information, and the same opportunities, yet achieve completely different results. The difference is almost always invisible. Where do they place their attention each day? The intelligent mind does not try to cover everything. It learns to ignore the irrelevant without guilt because it understands that attention is a finite resource, and what absorbs your attention shapes the way you think. Most people live with their attention hijacked by news they cannot control, others' opinions, external conflicts, constant stimuli, and useless arguments. That mental noise not only tires but impoverishes thought because a mind occupied with the irrelevant loses depth. The intelligent are not those who know more, but those who choose better what to pay attention to. And that choice defines clarity, judgment, and the capacity to make good decisions. A real example occurs in the world of cinema with Leonardo DiCaprio. For years, he was considered talented but inconsistent. While many actors of his generation dispersed, accepting any role for visibility, he made a silent but decisive choice. Focus only on projects that challenged him intellectually and had narrative depth. He declined dozens of lucrative offers that would have kept him busy but not elevated. Selective attention, not raw talent, transformed his career. When he won the Oscar, it was not luck or persistence, but sustained mental direction. The same occurs in daily life. People spend hours arguing about problems they cannot solve, comparing themselves, reacting, consuming content that improves nothing. Then they wonder why they feel mentally exhausted without real progress. The mind does not strengthen by accumulation. It strengthens by selection. Every mental yes is a no to something more important. The practical application is concrete. Over the next few days, observe honestly where your attention goes. Conversations, screens, repetitive thoughts, worries. Then make one conscious adjustment. Remove a source of noise that does not provide clarity or solutions. Not everything at once, just one. That small change releases mental energy most people never recover. When attention is freed, thought improves almost immediately. Training attention is not about forcing concentration. It is about reducing unnecessary distractions. The intelligent do not fight with their mind. They design their mental environment, deciding what enters, stays, or is discarded. That is a silent but profound form of intellectual superiority, because while others react to everything, you choose. The result of this chapter is clear. The mind becomes lighter, more precise, and more strategic. Less noise, less confusion, more clarity. When you think clearly, you begin to see opportunities that previously went unnoticed, not because they did not exist, but because your attention was elsewhere. Now that you know how to direct your attention intelligently, in the next chapter you will discover why truly intelligent people do not complain and how training a solution-oriented mind gives you an advantage even in difficult situations. Chapter 3. Think in solutions, not complaints. The difference between an ordinary mind and a truly intelligent mind is not the absence of problems, but how it responds to them. Most people react to obstacles seeking immediate emotional relief. They complain, explain why something does not work, blame external factors, and gain a temporary reward, feeling understood. But that reward has an invisible cost. Every complaint reinforces the idea of helplessness. A mind accustomed to complaining stops seeking real solutions. The intellectually superior person does not deny problems, but neither do they remain trapped in them. They understand that explaining a problem is not the same as solving it, and that spending too much time describing what is wrong only strengthens the block. Therefore, when something fails, the first reaction is not verbal, it is mental. They change the question. Instead of "why is this happening to me?" they ask, "what can I adjust now?" That small cognitive shift completely changes the outcome. A real example is observed in motorsports with Niki Lauda. After suffering a nearly fatal accident in 1976 with severe burns and evident physical consequences, he had every reason to complain, retire, or remain anchored in resentment. But his approach was radically different. He did not focus his energy on the unfairness of the accident, but on the concrete adjustments he could make to return to racing. He changed routines, modified his training, accepted limitations without dramatizing them, and returned to the track in record time. His advantage was not physical, it was mental. He thought in solutions while others would have remained trapped in a problem narrative. The same occurs daily on a smaller scale. Two people face the same professional, financial, or personal setback. One spends weeks talking about how badly things went. The other spends the same time identifying a possible move, however small. In the end, the winner is not the one with fewer obstacles, but the one who escapes the mental loop of complaints first. The practical application is direct and trainable. Each time you detect a complaint in your mind, even if you do not voice it, do one thing. Turn it into an action question. If the thought is "this is a disaster," change it to "what part can I move today?" If it is "nobody helps me," change it to "what depends only on me." This exercise does not eliminate the problem, but restores mental control, and that is applied intelligence. Thinking in solutions does not mean naive optimism. It means being operational. The intelligent mind does not seek to feel better first. It seeks to function better. And curiously, when it begins to function better, emotional relief follows naturally without forcing it. The result of this chapter is evident. The listener notices that they waste less mental energy, act earlier, stagnate less, and even in difficult situations maintain an invisible advantage over those who only react. While some complain, others adjust, and those who adjust advance. Now that you know how to train a solution-oriented mind, in the next chapter you will discover why not all opinions deserve equal weight and how to choose wisely whom to listen to. Accelerate your practical intelligence more than you imagine. Chapter 4. Choose wisely whom to listen to. One of the most silent and dangerous ways to lose practical intelligence is giving the same weight to every opinion. Most people believe that listening to everyone shows open-mindedness, but in practice, it usually shows a lack of judgment. Not all voices come with the same level of experience, responsibility, or clarity. When a mind does not filter, it becomes noisy, confused, and slow to decide. True intelligence is not about hearing more. It is about knowing whom to listen to and whom not to. Mentally superior people understand something crucial. Every opinion you accept competes for space in your mind. If you listen to someone who has built nothing in the area they comment on, their point of view does not give perspective. It gives doubt. That is why an intelligent mind does not seek mass approval. It seeks valid references, people who have paid the real price for their decisions, who bear consequences, who live what they say. That filter is an advanced form of social intelligence. An example appears in the career of Serena Williams. For years, she received constant advice on how she should play, behave, or moderate her style. Many came from commentators, critics, or even colleagues with lesser trajectories. Serena made a strategic decision to listen only to a very small circle with real high-performance experience: her father, her coach, and her own judgment. The result was not isolation, it was clarity. While other athletes fragmented mentally, trying to please external expectations, she maintained a coherent focus that allowed her to dominate her discipline for decades. The same occurs in daily life. When someone undergoes a major change, starts a business, moves, or makes a difficult decision, they often receive opinions from people who would never take that risk themselves. Be careful. That is dangerous. I would not do it. And even if it seems like well-intentioned advice, it actually reflects the mental limits of the person speaking, not yours. Listening without filtering turns those external limits into your own brakes. Applied intelligence appears when you understand that not all opinions are data. Many are only projections. The intelligent person does not argue with everyone. They simply decide which opinions deserve a place in their mental system and which do not. They do not confront. They do not over-explain. They filter silently. This ability saves mistakes, emotional wear, and years of unnecessary setbacks. The practical application is simple. When faced with any advice or opinion, ask yourself 3 internal questions. Has this person achieved what I want to achieve? Do they live with the consequences of the advice they give me? Does their life reflect clarity or confusion? If the answer is no, listen with respect, but do not incorporate it. This act is not arrogance. It is mental hygiene. The result of this chapter is immediate. The listener begins to feel less internal noise, less contradiction, less guilt when deciding, and more firmness. Because when you reduce incorrect voices, your own judgment strengthens. Intelligence does not increase by accumulating opinions. It increases through conscious selection. Now that you know whom to listen to, in the next chapter you will discover something even more subtle and powerful. Why learning what is useful makes you more intelligent than learning what is popular, and how poorly chosen knowledge can slow you down instead of making you brilliant. Chapter 5. Learn what is useful, not what is popular. One of the great modern traps of intelligence is believing that knowing more is the same as thinking better. Today, people consume information nonstop: books, videos, podcasts, headlines, but their ability to decide does not improve. In fact, it often worsens because not all knowledge elevates intelligence. Much of it only occupies mental space without producing judgment. The intelligent are not distinguished by how much they know, but by how they know to use what they know. Learning what is popular gives conversation. Learning what is useful gives results. Most study what is trendy, what is shared, what sounds interesting, but they do not ask if it improves their life, their work, or their decisions. That is why you see highly informed people still making the same mistakes. They know a lot, but they do not know how to apply it. Practical intelligence selects, discards, prioritizes. It does not accumulate out of curiosity. It invests for utility. A rarely cited example is Charlie Munger, the longtime partner of Warren Buffett, but with a different mental approach. Munger never sought to learn everything or follow intellectual trends. He built what he called fundamental mental models. A few key ideas from various disciplines, psychology, economics, basic mathematics, biology, that truly explained how the world works. While others read hundreds of books without structure, he reread the same principles until he mastered them. His advantage was not the amount of information, but the quality and applicability of the knowledge he chose to learn. The same principle applies in everyday life. Some people spend years learning complex techniques they never use, while others master a few simple rules they apply every day. The intelligent do not ask, "Is this interesting?" They ask, "Does this improve my decisions?" If the answer is no, they discard it without guilt because they understand that every piece of knowledge competes for future attention. The practical application is transformative. Before learning something new, ask yourself this brutally honest question: in what real situation will I use this in the next 30 days? If there is no clear answer, that knowledge is not a priority. Then identify the areas that do impact your life: decisions, communication, money, self-control, focus, and learn only what strengthens those areas. The rest can wait or never be learned. The result of this chapter is immediate mental clarity, less compulsive consumption, less feeling of overload, more judgment, and more power to decide. When you learn what is useful, your mind stops being full and starts being sharp. Now that you know what to learn, in the next chapter, we will enter a skill that separates the intelligent from the exhausted. Why saying no is a superior form of intelligence, and how to protect your time, energy, and focus without conflict or guilt. Chapter 6. Saying No, the forgotten intellectual skill. Most people believe intelligence is demonstrated by saying the right things, giving good answers, having solutions. But there's a much quieter and more powerful form of intelligence: knowing how to say no, not as an impulsive rejection, but as a mental filter. Every time you say yes to something unnecessary, you are saying no to something important. Most live intellectually impoverished, not because of what they do, but because of everything they accept without thinking. Saying no is not rudeness, it is clarity. The problem is that many confuse intelligence with compliance. They think being accessible, available, or agreeable is a sign of maturity, when in reality, it is a sign of a lack of internal judgment. The intelligent understand that their time, energy, and attention are finite resources, and protecting them is not selfish. It is responsibility. A very illustrative example is Daniel Day-Lewis, considered one of the most intelligent and meticulous actors of his generation. Unlike other actors, Day-Lewis spent long periods without working, not due to a lack of offers, but because he rejected most projects. He said no even to well-paid roles if they were not aligned with his internal standard. While others accumulated mediocre work, he protected his focus, creative energy, and identity. The result was not less success. It was less noise and more impact. His intelligence was not in accepting opportunities, it was in choosing them. The same happens in daily life. Brilliant people fade because they say yes to unnecessary meetings, poorly framed favors, draining conversations, and commitments that add nothing. At the end of the day, they are tired but have not advanced. The intelligent learn to detect what does not contribute and cut it early, without drama, without long explanations, because they understand that every no is a decision in favor of something better. The practical application is immediate. The next time you receive a request, do not respond impulsively. Create a mental pause and ask yourself, does this support or interfere with what I'm building? If it interferes, the answer is no. You can use simple and firm phrases. Not a priority right now. I cannot commit to this. I prefer to focus on something else, without justifying, without apologizing for thinking. Respect appears when you are clear and calm. The result of mastering this skill is profound. Less exhaustion, more focus, more external respect, and above all, more self-respect. When you learn to say no, your mind stops fragmenting and begins to operate with intention. Now that you know how to protect your attention and energy, in the next chapter you will see why real intelligence is not shown in isolated moments, but in daily consistency, and how to turn everything you have learned into a way of life, not scattered ideas. Chapter 7. Intelligence is demonstrated in consistency. Many people consider themselves intelligent because they understand complex ideas, because they know what to do, because they have read, listened, or reflected. But life does not reward what you understand. It rewards what you sustain. The true difference between an intelligent person and one who only appears intelligent is much simpler. Consistency. Thinking well once changes nothing. Thinking well every day, even when you do not feel like it, is what transforms an ordinary mind into a superior mind. Real intelligence is not brilliant. It is stable. It does not manifest in heroic decisions or moments of inspiration. It manifests in the ability to repeat good decisions when no one is watching. Most fail not due to a lack of intellectual ability, but because their thinking is intermittent. Today, they act with clarity. Tomorrow, they return to impulse. Today, they understand. Tomorrow, they forget. This constant oscillation erodes any mental advantage. A very illustrative example is Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates. Beyond his financial success, Dalio is known for something much deeper: his obsession with turning principles into daily habits. He did not rely on momentary intelligence. He relied on repeatable mental systems. He documented mistakes, reviewed decisions, applied the same principles again and again, even after achieving success. While others depended on brilliant intuitions, he depended on intellectual consistency. The result was not only wealth, but sustained clarity under high-pressure contexts. In daily life, the same occurs. People make a good decision today, but return to old habits tomorrow. People think clearly while listening to an audiobook, but later let the environment, emotion, or comfort decide for them. The intelligent understand that the mind needs structure, not motivation. That is why they do not negotiate with themselves daily. They decide once and then repeat. The practical application is direct. Choose 3 mental principles from this audiobook that you know improve your life, and commit to applying them every day without exception. Not when you're motivated, not when you have time, but as a personal standard. Think before reacting, protect your attention, say no when necessary. Repeating these decisions turns intelligence into identity, not intention. When you sustain good decisions, something silent but decisive happens. Your environment begins to adjust. People treat you differently, trust your judgment more, and respect you without needing proof. Because consistency communicates something words cannot: mental stability. The result is clear. Intelligence stops being something you try to demonstrate and becomes the natural way you live. Fewer mistakes, less drama, better choices, better results, without visible effort. In the next and final chapter, we will condense everything learned so you understand what it truly means to live as someone smarter than others, not by comparison, but from the peace of a mind that no longer sabotages itself. Chapter 8. Living as someone smarter than others. Being smarter than others does not mean knowing more, speaking better, or appearing brilliant. It means making fewer repeated mistakes, choosing better under pressure, and not letting emotion, noise, or urgency decide for you. True intelligence is not noticed in what you say. It is noticed in how you live, in the calm with which you choose, in the clarity with which you advance, and in the problems you simply no longer create. Throughout this audiobook, you have learned something fundamental. Intelligence is not a fixed trait. It is a system of decisions. Think before reacting. Protect your attention. Focus on solutions. Choose wisely whom to listen to. Learn only what is useful. Say no without guilt. And sustain good decisions over time. Each of these principles alone improves your life, but together they create something much more powerful, a constant mental advantage. Most people live mentally exhausted because they decide everything in real time. They react, improvise, explain themselves, justify themselves, and repeat mistakes. The intelligent do the opposite. They decide once and execute many times. They do not need to dramatize, prove themselves, or win arguments. They live with less internal friction, and it shows outwardly in work, relationships, finances, and peace of mind. When you start living from this level of thought, something changes quietly. You stop engaging in unnecessary conflicts. Your time becomes more productive. People trust your judgment, and opportunities appear more often. Not because you are better than others, but because you are clearer, and clarity always opens paths. The lesson is simple and powerful. You do not need to become another person. You need to think better consistently. Intelligence is not in doing extraordinary things. It is in not sabotaging yourself every day. And when you stop, life begins to organize itself naturally. Remember this. When you think better, you choose better. When you choose better, your life changes. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but with real results. And if this audiobook has given you clarity, calm, and judgment, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and continue exploring the other audiobooks we offer, where we train mind, character, communication, and high-level decision-making. Because a well-trained mind changes everything. Here, the journey does not end. Thank you for listening on Audiobook USA.